And that's pretty much the story. That is literally the story. Well, typically they do put in that Identicon is working with another industry called Malprave Industries, which specializes in genetic cloning, and we learn that the two are working together so that they can bring what else? World domination! So now what else? It's up to Bond to stop this whole catastrophe and bring peace to the world. Now, 007 Agent Under Fire. One comment I do have to make before I actually go into this game. The game, you can tell that EA is a huge fan of the James Bond franchise. Everybody in this company are huge fans of this franchise. And that's easy to tell from the opening title screen. Because when the game opens up, you hear that... I'm sorry, I have to do that. I have to act like I'm pointing a gun and just... when that song plays, whenever I reenact it. It's just an epic song. But from the title screen alone to the whole image of that one woman that they always, like this woman doing this and this, that you always see in the Bond films, even that one film, Spy, recently, that they did it with, you can tell that this film was made with James Bond fans in mind. Everything from the music to the intro to this title screen, you can tell that this whole game was devoted to James Bond fans. And that's one thing I do like about the game, is the labor of love that they give to the James Bond fans. And that was carried through really, really well. Now, that being said, the story itself, it starts off really good, and I think that they do a good job with establishing the villains. But a problem with that is it leads to these two villains being introduced, and none of them are memorable. Both of them feel really paper thin. You don't get a sense on their evil plan. You don't really understand why they're working together. You don't really get an idea. I just felt that they're not really fleshed out. They weren't written well. And that's saying something, and that's sad to say, because the James Bond movies have always brought great villains, especially that one in Skyfall with the teeth out. That part was like gross. But I felt that they really just didn't bring much to the story. They kept it moving very slowly. But I will say, I'll give it this. The way it's presented, the story, is really well done. And it comes across really good. It really gets the idea of a James Bond movie down. I just wish that the villains were more memorable, because they offer nothing. And I feel that the times that they are there really are just cliched and really forgettable, because the characters themselves are so paper thin and so cookie cutter, like, that it's really hard to get invested in them. It's really hard to feel threatened by them, because we've seen these villains done dozens of times in the movies, and I think they were done better in the movies. That's saying something, that a movie themselves... well, a director, I should say. A director himself who put a lot of budget into a movie does a better job than a video game. And I'm sad to say that, because we've had a lot of games out there that have had great villains, like Jack and Daxter, the Precursor Legacy. That had an amazing villain. I'll talk about that game another time, but that had an amazing villain. It wasn't just backed up by, oh, he was tall and brooding. To me, they actually presented him well. He was really fleshed out, and I felt threatened by him. And it wasn't just because of how brooding and just creepy looking he was. It was because they fleshed him out well, and Dee Snider's performance actually added to, how do I put it? It added to the personality of the villain. I think it fleshed it out a lot more than how this game does it with Nigel Block and Malprave, and the game itself just really didn't add that much. I will say this though, when the story does get moving in some parts, and when it does get moving, it really is well done, and it really comes across fast paced and really just it really just gets across really well. Even when the moments that, yes, I said they are slow in some parts, but when the action hits, it hits really well. And I'm willing to say that because the whole game itself just feels slow because of its villains, who are pretty much just there for the heck of it. They're not really fleshed out to keep the story moving. That was probably my biggest problem with the game, was its villains and how slow they kept the story running. That was one of the big problems I had. But another thing that I do got to talk about, the graphics themselves. The graphics themselves I'm somewhat in the middle with, because while at some points the areas you're in do look good, and I do kind of agree with some of the people, while I do disagree with some of the people who felt the location is uninspired. Here is an example where the graphics just feel, I don't know, they look like cardboard for some reason, as you guys can see here. But there is a plus to this. The cutscene animation is actually really, really well done, and it really drives into the whole James Bond experience. A lot of the characters feel natural, the faces are really well done, and the areas around them really blend in with the particular scene. So overall, the cutscene animation is really well done. If there was one little con, I could say it's James Bond himself in a lot of scenes, because, I don't know, just look at that. It looks nothing like him. Play is broken up into 3 different sections. First-person shooting, which you are seeing right now, but that also adds in gadgets, which you see right now. Right now, you just saw the Q-Claw, which can grapple to anything, as you can see right now. Whereas in the later one, Nightfire, which I'll talk about another time, can only grapple to metal, though. And the game also incorporates the fist move, which I really miss in these games. And for the most part, the mechanics are used really well. Right now, you can see this type of gadget I'm using right now is the Q Decryptor, which will decrypt a door like this. And basically, right now, as you can see, I have unlocked a Bond moment, which is basically where when you do something in a way James Bond would do, you get that whole, which also tallies up your score at the end of the level. And I found myself searching like a rabid dog to complete these parts, so yeah. Another thing I do like about the gameplay is the aiming. The aiming is really well done. It carries the same cursor aim as in something like Red Faction. It's done really well, and I have to be honest, it's done better here than in Red Faction. At times when I was playing Red Faction, it felt really slippery, even though it was still good, but at times I was playing it, it felt slippery in some parts. This, I think, does a heck of a lot better. Another weapon that I really love in this game is the Q laser, or gadget, I should say. And I also really like how with it, like, if you look up, like, right here, like, say, like, you want to get a weapon out, press the up button, you can do that. You get your bazooka, you got grenades. You can also do, in the triggers right here, I like how organized that is. I think it's done really, really well, so, yeah. But if there is one problem that I do have in terms of gameplay, it is the shooting itself, because at some points, whenever I was playing it and I came across a huge guy with a huge assault rifle, it wouldn't kill him, and the guns feel exactly the same. They all feel they pack exactly the same punch, and I really wish that there was more to them. Especially with the fact that when you come across a big guy, the assault rifle does not do damage. And you have to wait for 2 minutes before it does something. Look at me, I didn't design the game. I'm not that stupid. But, what the heck? I thought assault rifles were supposed to kill anybody within range in like 1 second. It's like they completely forgot about that, but it could be wearing armor, but I don't see that on them. It looks like they're wearing, like, jackets or something. It's the one thing I don't get. Anyway, moving on. This section of the game has you doing turret sections, which you are seeing right now. These parts I have absolutely no problem with. The gun handles fine. You're not doing the driving. And it's actually easy to control when you're like this. There's also a button where you can turn 180 and you can turn back. Say someone's in the back of you. You'll be able to kill them. and it's handled really well as opposed to the other first-person parts. But yeah, I have absolutely no problems with these parts. Really, I don't. Seeing as how I've already burnt on a few minutes talking about some of the things that I hate. Not saying that this is a bad game, but a lot of the game feels like, since it was James Bond's first leap onto the GameCube, it came with a heap load of problems. So, yeah. And now we talk about probably one of the worst incorporated parts in the game. The driving. Driving in the game feels really stiff in a lot of parts. I barely feel when I'm turning, and half of the time the game feels really... The controls themselves at times feel really sensitive. In fact, at times, like, whenever I'm driving, your car seems to take damage no matter where you are at. And what's this? That car instantly stopped me, even though I'm like a BMW and I could hit that thing and I could keep going. But the car controls feel really stiff. It's hard to not hit anything. Look at me, I'm hitting everything in my path. But there are some good to this. I do like the gadgets and stuff. They're used really well, and at times they do provide them in the best possible areas. So while driving's not the worst thing, it's just not good either. And you take damage easily. Look at that. As you saw, my health went down for a bit. Just by doing this, I think I got damage at one point. But it's just not the best. And when I... Look at that! Look at that! That's another example of how stiff the driving is. But, yeah, driving is, to me, probably one of the worst parts of the game. I sound like I hate this game, but I don't. I really, really don't. Because the game does have good intentions, and you could tell that EA is a huge fan of the Bond license and that they're happy to have it. Just by the opening title screen, the intro. In fact, some of the gameplay elements, the music and such, definitely gives it that Bond feeling that you want. It just really gets bogged down by a lot of, like, messed up things that they added in. The guns not doing as well as I thought they would. At some points, the story feels like it goes nowhere. Its villains are so paper thin, they're forgettable. It just is... It's an okay game. I'll say that. It's okay. It's nothing special. It... Just, to me, for a first time taking 007 onto the console, this was an okay attempt. Hopefully with Nightfire, I hope to God that they can do better. That's what I hope to God for, because if it's like this, I'm going to be mad. But it's not a bad game. It just has a huge amount of problems that lower the score to the ground. And I'm sad to say that, because this was my introduction. But it may sound like I hate this game, but I don't. Because it has good intentions. I do like the turret parts. I like some of the gameplay parts. I like the gadgets. The voice acting is good. In fact, some of the graphics themselves are actually really well done. So, overall, it's okay. It's an okay game. Which leads to my final rating. I give it a 6.5 out of 10. A 6.5. I would definitely rent it first right before you buy it. Because, Lord knows, you might be disappointed or not, but... It's an okay game. It's nothing special. I just feel it could have been so much better. If I was younger and this was 2001, I would have loved it a lot more. But just try and be truthful. But that's my review for 007 Age Under Fire. Next time I might do a review of The Simpsons Road Rage, and I'll be sure to tell you guys what I think of that. Don't forget to comment, rate, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.